Okay, thanks. Before I start, brief introduction of mine. I'm a founder and director of a company called Blue-Infy Solutions and Security Exposure. In the past, I worked with NetSquare, Chase, IBM, and Foundstone. My primary interest is in web security. We at Blue-Infy doing a lot of research and a lot of consulting work for different applications on application layer assessing and building the source code scanners and building application scanners. Here is some of the tools which we are going to cover during this presentation would be like WS Scanner, Scan Web 2.0, App Map, App Code Scan, App Print, etc. And these are some of my books: Web 2.0 Security, Defending Ajax and RIA, Hacking Web Services, and Web Hacking. Before I start, lately in last 1 year or 1.5 years, we are seeing a lot of applications migrated towards Web 2.0 using different components of Web 2.0. And some of the cases, this is like one of the recent assessment which we did with a Web 2.0 portal, where typical application for buying and selling goods over internet, typical e-commerce application. And if you look at the technologies, which is Dojo, Ajax, XML, services, blog, widgets, all these different components of Web 2.0 part of this application. Now, what interesting about these applications are when you try to scan the product with a traditional methodology or a traditional tool, you are using any of the products or tool, and try to scan those applications, the scanner will not work. Essentially, these applications are like a one-page application, either written in a Ajax or a Java script, the front end, and in the back end it's a web services. So there are no typical resources or typical hrefs you find in the application where you can traverse to the entire application and figure out the resources, and once you have the resources you go ahead and do fuzzing or attacking those resources. So if we use the tools and products, try to scan the application, it's failed miserably. So no vulnerability found, no resources are captured, and pretty much there are so many resources on these particular application, but none of them is discovered by these scanners. So we did manual testing as usual and started to discover a lot of different vulnerabilities in the application. All these application vulnerabilities are quite unique with a traditional way of your doing application or traditional way of scanning your application. And some of the vulnerabilities which we discovered is SQL injection over XML pipe or a JSON pipe, cross-site scripting, which is very common. You have a persistent, non-persistent cross-site scripting all over here. We found several routines of Ajax which were vulnerable, so we discovered Ajax-driven cross-site scripting. Several cross-site scripting with blog component. What they have done is they've integrated some open source blog into their application, and you were able to find so many cross-site scripting in the blog. Information leakage, one of the popular attack vector, and we were able to find a lot of information leakage coming out from the not traditional resources, but the Web 2.0 resources, which is running JSON services or such. And pretty much we are able to get into a system. We were able to do a remote query execution, owning the SQL database at the back end and all different stuff all over XML traffic or JSON traffic. So this is a pretty eye-opening case when you start looking at the Web 2.0 application, and if you don't analyze it with a different perspective, then you end up missing a lot of different vulnerabilities in the application. So what we are going to cover in today is we start with the Web 2.0 new battlefield, where we are moving, some architecture, strategic changes which we are seeing, and what kind of enemies which we are looking at. And then we will quickly focus or browse through detecting vulnerabilities, like methodologies which you can follow to scan Web 2.0 application to determine its fingerprints, discovery, enumeration, and crawling. And then we will look at the top 10 attack vectors or issues. Now these are not the top 10 from OWASP or top 10 from some different organization. These are some of the top 10 which we have determined while scanning all these Web 2.0's products which we scanned, or Web 2.0 application which we scanned in last 1.5 years. So on top we have Ajax-driven cross-site scripting, then we have a JavaScript injection with the mashup applications, SQL injection of a two-type O type, which we'll be going to see, CSRF with XML, CSRF with JSON or a JavaScript, RSS manipulation, reverse engineering and logical hacks, WSDL scan and exposure, SOAP injection, and widgets and gadgets hacks. So these are the plan for today. How you secure your Web 2.0 application? So what you have is a Web 2.0 asset or a resource, which may be your JavaScript, or it may be running your web services, maybe on a client side or on a server side. What you do is you do two approaches. On a one, you do a footprinting and discovery, you do enumeration and crawling of the application, and then you do attack and scanning on each different application components and try to come out with the vulnerabilities. Or you put a white box approach methodology where you take the source code, analyze the entire source code, and try to come up with the vulnerabilities. By both the methods, or following one over another or both of them, you try to determine a list of vulnerability, and then you apply your secure coding or a Web 2.0 kind of a firewall where you are filtering your traffic for 2.0, and eventually you get your resource secured. So moving to a new battlefield, where are we moving? Architecture changes and enemies. If you look at like last 2 years, a lot of different applications, maybe a Gmail, Google, Dig, NetVibes, PageFlax, WordPress, Writely. This is like a very small list of applications. There are tons of new applications coming out, or old applications moving to new heights. All these applications are using Web 2.0 extensively. So what we are looking at is adaptation of Web 2.0. Almost 80% of companies are investing in web services as part of the Web 2.0 initiative, McKinsey 2007 report, which just published in February. By end of 2007, 30% of large companies have some kind of a Web 2.0 initiative up and running. And 2008, web services or service-oriented architecture, which is popularly known as SOA, would surge ahead. So what we are seeing is there is a definite trend, or there is definite pattern which we are seeing where applications are moving towards Web 2.0, which has a two component. Definitely there is a drive for a social requirement and a better experience for application, and then there is a second drive is essentially where you are looking at consuming different applications from over APIs, and when you want to consume more than one application on your application, essentially what you need is you have to move towards a SOA or a service-oriented architecture. So this is a one trend which we are seeing, and that is where a lot of different applications which are coming for the assessment has this piece and components running. Now if you look at the change in the architecture of a Web 2.0 application, what you have over here is your web browser, which is using JavaScript or Flash-based components, and on the bottom it is written on HTML, JS, or DOM. So this JavaScript are essentially running and gluing all different components of the browser. So you don't get a typical HTML page back on your browser, but you get a JavaScript coming to you, and then it is making a dynamic call at the back end. So that is your new kind of an old browser stack, but recoded differently. Then it will hit to your application server where various different web services are running, and you have your local database or authentication which is falling on your application infrastructure. Now what we are seeing is all different new applications coming up. They are publishing their web services through open APIs or APIs. So whether you are looking at Google, Yahoo, take any of the application which have a service-oriented architecture where SOAP-based web services running, or your JSON-based RPC calls are running or such. So what you have is, from your application, you can integrate all these different applications, maybe your banking application, trading, weather, email, blog, etc. So what we are seeing is that every morning you wake up and go to 20 different applications to browse around, 5 applications for your news, 2 applications for your emails, 3 applications for your banks or trades or such. If all these applications opened up by some APIs, then what you can do is you can write one application which will consume all these different applications from that particular application. So in the past, like if we define internet as like network of networks, then you can imagine Web 2.0 is like application of applications. So what we are seeing is like all these applications on internet is more or less like an objects. So we are seeing a distributed computing over internet, while you can write a one application using different applications from that particular application, since everyone has now published their APIs. So say for example you want to search Google today. It is not essential that you have to go to the Google site and put your search and look at your search there. What you can do is you can write a very simple program, take the Google APIs which are already published, integrate into your desktop application, write a search there, and then rest of the things will be taken care by application or APIs, and those APIs will make call to the backend. So what we are looking at is there is a great rise of mashup applications where one application using more than 5 or 6 applications at the same time. So you have a mashup from eBay and mashup from Google Maps and such. So if you look at the layers of these Web 2.0 application, what you have is a browser where Ajax, Flash, RIA, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, widgets and DOM. This is all the client layer components would get utilized. Then the important piece comes is the structures, where when you are looking at the traditional application, all traffic is usually a name pipe, name value pair. You have like you are passing foo.aspx $ID equal to 1 ampersand quantity equal to 5. Those kind of a traffic which either going through a query string or going through your post buffer. Now over here, this traffic, the 2.0 traffic, would be going over XML or going over a JSON or going over a JS object or such. So your browser is sending these streams to the client, to the server, and server will receive back maybe XML or JSON or some other traffic. And then we have some few new set of protocols coming into picture like JSON RPC, REST, XML RPC, SOAP. Now all these protocols are interestingly go over HTTP or HTTPS. So you don't have to open a new port for these protocols. And finally it will go to the server side where your services are running, your open APIs are running, or your SaaS is running, or software as service is running. So for example, over here, say you go to a page called pageflags.com. Now when you go to this pageflags.com and put the little Firebug plugin on, so you have a Firebug which is a little plugin comes in a Firefox where you can separate out the traffic and say show me all my XHR traffic. XHR traffic is essentially a traffic which is for a Web 2.0 traffic where your JavaScript is opening up the socket at the back end for XML HTTP request object and tunneling the HTTP traffic back and forth. So over here, if you look at what is happening is like one large JavaScript which is get it loaded on your browser, and it is making all these different calls you are looking at. Tons of different calls it is making, and all these calls are very little web services call. So all these different widgets you are seeing are like a one application running in a one large application. So multiple applications running in your browser, and all these applications are asynchronous. So you are doing something in a one part of the application, it's not going to affect other part of the application. So all these asynchronous call, it's not a synchronous call. So that is the way how this next generation or new applications are working, and new technologies are emerging, XHR or a flash based application or such. And look at this traffic. This traffic is not your traditional traffic where you see a name value pair or such. It is more like a 2.0 kind of a traffic where it is over here it is like a JSON stream, or over here it's like a more XML blocks coming back to you and such. So this is how this new applications would look like. Moving back to the presentation. So there are two important changes which we are seeing before getting into attacks and methodology. Number one is on your application infrastructure where your applications are running. You have a protocol level changes where your protocols are changed in a 1.0, or like if you look at the traditional application, you have HTTP and HTTPS only. Now you have a SOAP, XML, RPC, REST, all these over HTTP and HTTPS. Then information structures. We have like a typical Web 1.0 application where name value pair is going out from the browser and HTML coming back to you. Over here, now what we are saying is we have XML, JSON, JS object, and various different customized structures which is marshalling between browser and your application. Communication method, the most interesting, like Web 1.0 applications are like a synchronous, boring, post back, refresh and redirect. Like you go to the one application, you get a 5 links, you click one, you go to next. So while your page is getting refreshed and reload, you can't do anything. It's all synchronous. Your socket is blocked.